Are you gonna hold this?
Do I gotta? Do I
Well,
gotta
it's hard
hold
to
it?
hear it when we record it if you don't hold it.
Yeah, that's true.
So sorry.
That's true. All right. Good morning.
Morning, all.
Thanks for everybody being here today. Um, we're going to continue on with the study that Monty started last week, and today we're going to talk about loving each other. Love others is the actual title, and looking forward to getting into some of this. It was an interesting piece when I started doing a little bit of research on this.
For sure.
And so what does it look like? And I would like this to be pretty interactive. So if you have comments or anything, please speak up or questions, and then Marshall will answer those. So what does it look like to love others?
And maybe we qualify the question a little bit. So
Yeah.
we use the word love in a lot of different varieties, right? Like I love certain kinds of food. I love to cheer for certain sports teams. We use that word love for a variety of different purposes. Even when we're talking about relationships, in this class we're getting insights into what does it really mean to have connection, to connect with each other. And love being obviously a significant portion of that, a significant part of that. But what does it mean to, like, I love Chris. I'm not in love with Chris, but it's the same word, right? I am not in love with Chris, by the way. Let's be perfectly clear about that. But that's using the same word, but a couple different connotations, right? So I think that's like, what are we talking about when you're asking, like, what does love look like? I mean, part of it is just even knowing which kind of love we're talking about. What are you gonna say, Chris? Huh? In English, we only have the one word.
Funny you say that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. I really like them.
I love
really
to
like
consume
eat
them.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So in the English language, we pretty much have one word to describe about, I don't know, 20 different emotions, probably.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, in doing some of the research on this, that very led right into it was what. There are so many different words for this. For instance, eros, eros, is a romantic love, right? That's something where your heart starts beating and skipping, and when you see the person that you just care about. Pragma is one. It's a long term. It's enduring. Think of a couple that's been together forever. That's a term that's used for love. There's ludus, Ludus. It's a playful, flirty love. And I thought, yep, and you need that one in order to have the pragma. So it's another way of just expressing the word love. And then there's agape. I think everybody's heard that term, right? And it's defined as. You want to do that?
Sure. An unconditional love based on a conscious decision and not just an emotion. It expects nothing in return and is characterized by empathy and a desire for the beloved or the person that you love for their good and a willingness to help.
Yeah.
I've heard it called a sacrificial kind of love.
Yeah.
Like I love this person no matter what.
Yeah.
So there's several, and we didn't even use all the different words for love in different languages. That's just a handful of them. So going back to Chris's first question, when we're talking about connection and we're talking about loving people, I mean, the two greatest commands are what? Love God and love other people. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? So what is that, going back to Chris's question, what does that look like? What does it look like to you, before we dive into some more scriptures, to love people, especially the people that you're in a church family with? Yes, ma'am. To put others first, okay? I want to ask you to dive even deeper than that. What does that mean? Okay. Okay. I'm concerned but I'm not judgmental, love you no matter what, and I'm putting you first. And again, so even with what Mariette just said, what does it mean to put somebody else first? What does that look like? Like Jesus washing feet.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead. Hold on. He's not done yet. Go ahead, Chris. Oh, he is done. Yes, sir.
Dave.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you made a good point there, Dave. Um, that first part of that Matthew 22 verse, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul. That's fairly straightforward and easy to understand, right? There's not a lot of wiggle room on what that looks like,
Everything that you have goes into loving God.
right? The second part of that's a little harder. And Dave, the thing that you said, we make mistakes daily on how we love God. How bad is it on how the mistakes that we make on how we love each other?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the focus, right? We want to make sure that what we're doing here at Flagstone is loving God with everything we've got, but also loving the people that are next to us. Okay? Caring for and helping people who are in need. Okay? Examples, not suggestions, examples. Yeah. So stepping up to the plate. Stepping up to the plate. Yeah.
But I think you also talked about having eyes open. I'm looking
Oh,
for
that's a
people
really good point.
who are in need, whatever the need is. Yes, ma'am. Hmm. 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 Yeah, that's fine. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. That is interesting. So sometimes you can be a part of a church. I'm going to repeat what you said so we can have it on the video. You are part of a church family where, because it's a military church, because it's people who are fairly, can I use the word transient? Yeah, very mobile. That they build connections pretty easily. And then there's other churches, especially if they've known each other for a little bit, they've been around each other for a while. There's almost, I mean, you can call it cliques. There's tight knit circles to form, and it's hard sometimes to break through those, especially if you're the new person there. And it's not that those people are necessarily intentionally being unloving, but going back to what Gary was saying, like I may not have because I'm so focused on my circle, I may not have eyes to see, oh, there's some people out around me that need that connection, and I'm just not seeing it. And I might even assume I'm a very loving person. I'm a very outgoing, connecting kind of person, and I am to this circle right here, and not even realize it. That's good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we want to encourage all of our membership to do is to not break the clique, but just open a door and let people come in. And you're right. You get so focused on everything that you do every day, and those blinders, excuse me, those blinders go on, and it's hard to see left and right because you're so focused on just your task each day. And so what we want people here to do is to remove those blinders and start looking for the guests that walk in the door. How can we get them connected? Where do they fit within our family? Because we've got all walks of life here, different age groups, different situations in life where they're at, and I think if we can really focus on that, you'll see us. And again, the purpose here is not to grow Flagstone; it's to grow the kingdom. And so we want to do that. And sometimes it's adding somebody to your group that has been a part of a church life their whole life, and that's great. We really want to see people come in that don't have those connections and help them find a place where they feel like this is home.
Yeah. So let's look at a handful of scriptures real quick and just kind of see, some of these are going to, especially if you've grown up in the church or gone to church for a while, these are going to sound really familiar, okay? But we're going to kind of read through a handful of these and then get a little bit more specific. Okay, what does that look like? Not just in my marriage or even in my family or maybe in some close friendships. What does it look like in the church? What does it look like when we're talking about connecting as a church family? How does this particular scripture play out? So I don't know which ones you want to read.
I thought that I would hit, we've already talked about the greatest command in Matthew 22. Mm-hmm. John 13, verses 34 through 35. Read this. It says, "A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." And that's what we're trying to define today.
Right.
Right? We're trying to define that peace.
While you're turning to your next one, let me ask a question real quick. If you got your Bibles open there, John 13, where he just read in verse 34, what's the first thing that Jesus says before he says love one another? What's the first sentence? A new command I give you. Is this a new command? This is he's going to be arrested in a few hours. And for those of y'all who didn't hear, Brandon said that sounds a little late to be given a new command, right? It's a brand new command that he's given him. And that's my question is like, is this new? How is this new? Okay. As I have loved you, that's part of it, right? We've spent 3 years together. He's talking to his disciples. We spent 3 years together. You've seen me. You've seen what it looked like for me to love you. Now you guys need to do that for each other. And that's part of it.
He's getting ready to really show them how much he loves them,
That's true.
right? I mean, this is where he's predicting Peter's denial.
Mm-hmm.
And then we roll over here into John chapter 14, and he says, oh, let me find I had it, and then I lost it. Sorry, John 15.
John 15.
Yeah, sorry. It says, my command is this.
Is that verse 12?
Right, verse 12, 12 and 13. It says, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. And if you read on, he says, you are my friends. So he set the example that we're supposed to follow. Can you imagine laying down your life for a friend? I think all of us would go, oh, yeah, I'd do that.
Sure.
Just like Jesus, or like Peter said that he would never leave Jesus.
Yeah. When it comes down to it.
When it comes down to it, that's a little harder pill to swallow than.
So with both of these, he is talking about how, like, look how I loved you guys. Look at our relationships. Look at our connection with each other. And I still, to me, it's interesting. I appreciate what Ruth said, but it just seems interesting to me that Jesus says, I'm giving you a brand new commandment, because he has said to love each other, right? I mean, we've already talked about Matthew 22 or Mark chapter 12, whichever one you want to look at. When he's asked what the greatest commands are, he said the greatest commands are love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? Sermon on the Mount. Don't just love the people that you like, but also what? Love your enemies. Love your enemies. Sacrifice for them, right? So I go back again to the question, why is he calling this a new commandment? Because the love your neighbor stuff was back in at Mount Sinai. That's been a command from the beginning. Yes, sir. It's going to look different when Jesus isn't with them. Okay? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And we haven't had, it's going to feel new without him being there. And then we haven't had, to this point, we haven't really had a church yet. Right? And again, I think this is one of the reasons why Jesus says this. I'm giving you guys this new command that's going to, it's going to bleed into everything that you do. I'm not going to be here anymore. As you said, Katie, it's not going to be about just bringing people to the show and letting them see Jesus. I mean, we want to bring people to Jesus and let them experience him for themselves. But there's something about this relationship with each other. I'm giving you a command, not just to love other people. I've already given you that command. Not just to love your enemies, because I've already talked about that too. I've talked about loving your neighbor and loving other people. I need you to what? Love each other. And you would think that would be redundant, but honestly, if you look back through, until we get to right here, we don't see Jesus saying that a whole lot. We see him talking about being a servant. The greatest should be the least and all that kind of stuff. Right. But this is one of the first times, at least at this point in Jesus' ministry, where Jesus looks at his disciples and specifically says, not just you need to put each other's needs in front of your own. You need to put each other in front of yourselves. You need to love each other. What I just did, I just washed y'all's feet. I did a nasty job for you guys. And a matter of fact, if you go back to John chapter 13, before he did the foot washing, John says he was about to show them the fullest extent of his love. Which is not just the foot washing. It was, like you said, it was the cross. But he's talked about serving each other. He's talked about helping each other. He's talked about elevating other people above ourselves. But this is one of the first times when he specifically says to the disciples, you guys need to love each other. Okay? Now, we bring that into the church, into our connection here. How do we do that? Not just for people outside the church. We need to love our neighbors. We need to, as Dave was saying a minute ago, we need to love people and connect with people and hopefully help them experience a church family like, a good, positive church experience. How do we connect with each other? How do we use love to connect with each other?
How many of us have a relationship with your extended family where one person really was the glue? The glue.
Extended family. One person kind of held everybody together. How many of y'all have something like that or had?
Yeah. How many of you guys have lost that person? Right? How hard is it for that extended family to remain cohesive? Yeah, it's effort, right?
And why is that? Why is it difficult when that person is not there? All the effort went through that one person. Kept the group together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personalities. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Them loving each other.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could very well be they've gotten along. Well, yeah. But how many times in Jesus' ministry do we see him having to get onto them for arguing each other about who was the greatest?
Yeah.
It happened. I think it's
Yeah.
Luke's version that talks about they were arguing at the table about which one was the greatest because
Yeah.
one of them was getting to sit closer to Jesus than somebody else. So it's still happening. There's still this divisiveness. So again, I think that's what Jesus is getting at here. I'm giving you guys something that is revolutionary, not just for the world, for you guys. This is you. You have to love each other. You guys know how much I love you. You have to love each other that much, not just pacify each other, which is, some of us can do that. I can sit in a room with somebody that I can't stand. I can generally keep my mouth. That was just, I was looking over you. I wasn't looking at you. I was looking over you.
The one behind you.
But I think that that's what Jesus is getting at here. You have to take this to the next level. Your love that you have demonstrated to me, you now need to demonstrate for each other. That's really good.
Well, this church split. The people who owned the building before us, that they had somebody come in and divided it, and that's why they dwindled.
Usually it's from relationships that have been there for a while.
What I've seen multiple times is two people that for a long time have been close friends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People who have known each other for a while can't get on the same page. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Mm-hmm. It's that agape word. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. I need you guys to fully sacrifice yourselves for each other, even if you don't get anything in return. Yeah. That's the word that he uses. Yeah. And I think that's the way we need to look at it. You need to sacrifice for each other, which, going back to what this Chris was just saying, that that becomes a problem in churches sometimes because I want things a certain way. I want the building to look a certain way. I want the worship style to be a certain way. I want this person to teach class and not this person. I want us to do this activity and not that one. And I'm going to dig in so much on what I consider to be important to me that I'm not willing to sacrifice some of my preferences in order for someone else to be blessed. That's where a lot of those problems come in.
I'm glad you said preferences there
I
because
said preferences.
that is
I
that
was
is that
intentional.
is a that is a key point, right? Usually when it happens, it's over preferences. There should never be a disagreement unless it's a biblical salvation issue. If it's because you want the walls painted blue and somebody else wants them yellow, just be quiet and go on.
Well, Jesus wants them painted yellow.
Well, if Jesus wants them painted yellow, if it says it right there, I'm all
I'm just
in.
kidding.
My point is our we have to put our personal feelings aside and love those people, even though we may not get along. But unless it's a salvation issue, there is no reason to cause a stir. And knock on wood, we've never had that issue here. Thank goodness.
Just jinxed it.
Yeah, probably so. Like he's made 12 free throws in a row. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir. They did at the time. They didn't
Yeah.
after the betrayal. Yeah. But the question was, did the 12 apostles love Judas? They didn't afterwards, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, the closest that I would know after, I would think at this time, they cared about Judas just as much as they did anybody else in the group. I'm sure there were some guys that got along with Judas better than other ones. Just like I'm sure, Simon and Matthew probably were cordial to each other, not necessarily loving towards each other with the zealot and tax collector like you talked about. So I would imagine that at least some of those people, because they were so surprised by what Judas did, nobody saw it coming. Even when Jesus kind of hints at, hey, what you're going to do, just go ahead and go do it. And what do they think? Oh, he's going to go buy some food for some poor people. Like they had no clue what he was about to do. Now, after the fact, I think there was definitely some bitterness there. It doesn't seem like they were very forgiving for what Judas did. You go to Acts chapter 1, when they're going to get another apostle to take Judas's place. It's not kind words that they use to talk about Judas, So I think there was definitely still some animosity there. But going back to what you were just saying, Bob, it's more than, you said it's more than just a feeling. which is what we talked about when we gave the definition of agape. It is a conscious decision. The kind of love that Jesus calls us to have is intentional. Even if I don't feel like it, I'm still going to sacrifice for you. I'm still going to put your needs above mine. And we can even do that sometimes in a guilt-inducing way. You know, I want to do this for you even though you don't deserve it. We'll make backhanded comments and stuff like that. Well, that's not what we're looking for either. I'm truly concerned about you and what you need, and so I'm going to do whatever it is that you need because I care that much about you. And I'm choosing to do that even if you've done something to hurt me, even if you've done something that I don't agree with. I'm making a conscious decision to do whatever it is that you need done.
No, I agree. And that's where I was heading, was back to that definition that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my favorite backhand is, I don't like you a whole lot, but I'll love you. Yes, Connie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I don't really get to know you, I don't have to know what your needs are. And then I don't feel obligated to fill them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And I don't know. Mm-hmm. Right. They're intertwined with each other. I can't make connections with somebody if I don't love them. And part of loving that person is making a connection with them. Yes, sir. Yeah. I don't even know what I need. Yeah. 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 So sometimes even if I don't know exactly what the need is, I know there is a need. So here's what I'm going to at least make the effort. Yeah.
So let's look at Romans chapter 12,
We're
9
good.
through 21. I think this will lead right into what we want to finish with. So, love must be sincere, right? Hate what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. That one comes up a bunch. Yeah. Without grumbling. I saw that someplace else, and I was like, whew. Okay. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay. This is the one where I struggle, folks. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Do not repay evil for evil. How many times have you wanted to just lay somebody out because they've done something awful? Maybe not even to you. Maybe you see it happen to somebody else, and you want so bad just to take revenge. You want to avenge that wrong. We're not supposed to do that. So let's look at Luke chapter 10.
Mhm.
Talk about feeding your enemy, taking care of their needs. In Luke chapter 10, everybody knows this. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. Right? It says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this, and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. I think the Samaritan had agape love without even realizing that he had agape love. Or maybe he did realize it, and that was just the type of person that he was. I don't know. But that's what we're called to do. We are called to love our neighbors, including our enemies, in the way that Jesus wanted his disciples to love each other. Whew, that's tough.
It sounds really simple.
It sounds super simple.
And it sounds like, well, I could do that if I see somebody stranded on the side of the road or whatever. I could help them out. Sure, no problem. Yeah, if I don't have love for God, I'm not going to have love for other people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got to have that love for God first, for sure.
Absolutely.
So let me ask this: How do you see this playing out? How can we be a Samaritan for each other within the church? What does that look like? Because we don't see each other laying on the side of the road driving in the parking lot, right? Or maybe we do. I don't know. Was somebody having trouble this morning? I don't know. Okay. What do you mean by transactional? What do you mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 So just in case you didn't all hear that, getting rid of the transactional idea, like I'm showing up at church to get whatever I can for me. Now, are we? Is it okay to come to church and to receive blessing and encouragement and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, hopefully that is happening. But if I'm showing up at church or a church event or whatever simply because this is going to make me feel good, or this is going to like what is I'm or if we say I'm not going to that because it's not that big a deal to me. It doesn't fit my personality, it doesn't fill my cup. Then it does make it much more consumer based. But if we can get rid of that, we become much more aware of the needs of people around us. Am I saying that right? I'm trying to summarize what you were saying.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I'm gonna pose this. If you come to church with the intention of how you can uplift other people, and you're gonna leave uplifted.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna
That's
get what you need if your first purpose is to love everybody else.
I agree. I think I just give you because we're going to wrap up here in just a second. I think we think in broad terms like the Good Samaritan. Like if I really see somebody in some desperate situation, of course I'm going to help. But I think that sometimes we lose sight of even just the little stuff and how unloving we can be sometimes. I knew somebody, not at this church, so I want to clarify. I knew somebody at another church that when we had a teen girl who got pregnant, having sex with her high school boyfriend got pregnant, and we're going to have a baby shower for her. Refused to go to the shower or buy a present. Why? Because she had sex outside of marriage. And I'm not going to support that. I'm not going to support the sin by giving diapers or wipes or a onesie or whatever it is to help this girl out. And that I didn't understand that. How could you? And some of y'all are like, yeah, I know exactly what that means. It's such a little thing. Doing something for this girl. Now, were the circumstances of how that girl became pregnant wrong? Sure. She shouldn't have been having sex with somebody she wasn't married to. Okay. But are we supposed to, let's even call her a sinner if we want to. I'd really hate that like labeling, but let's go that far. Call her a sinner because she had sex outside of wedlock. Okay. Are we supposed to love the sinners? So what would a loving Good Samaritan action look like? What is that, as Brandon was talking about, what does that girl need? She needs help. She needs support. She needs stuff. She needs advice. She needs words of wisdom. She needs somebody to hug her and tell her this is going to be okay. So that's just one example. But I think sometimes we look at like the big kind of broad picture or bigger events. How can I show love to people who have gone through like hurricanes in North Carolina? Well, I'll write them a check or I'll even show up and help clean up. And that is good that we should be doing those kind of things. When we're talking about connections in the church and loving each other in the church, what does that look like? Sometimes that's in the smallest little details. That I'm going to go rock somebody's baby in the nursery so that they can have a few minutes of rest and encouragement and worship. Can I do that? Can I sacrifice the transaction for me on this Sunday to go do that? That's what I think we're talking, when Jesus says, I want you to love each other, that's what it needs to look like. Not just in the big stuff, but the little stuff too. You understand what I'm saying by little stuff? It's important and it matters, but it doesn't seem that big on a grand scale. Brandon? Yeah. Look how simple you are. I'm coming running. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even have to accept everything that you're doing, but I'm going to meet whatever need you have.
Jake?
Yeah. 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 One of these days I'll get to the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. It's
now.
here. We're in
It's
it.
now.
Yeah. We're
Connie.
in the kingdom now.
Real quick.
Okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
absolutely.
It's got to be God working through us that moves us to show this kind of love.
So I want to close with just this thought. Do not let people's poor decision-making skills separate you from loving them the way God wants us to love people. Because that would be really easy because nobody would love each other here. Right? I mean, we would not have a family if we chose not to love on people who made bad decisions. Because we all make bad decisions.
Right.
All right. Thank you guys for
I
being
think
here
that's all we
today.
got,
Yeah.
at least for our time today.
Yep.
So thank you guys.
Yep.
We'll get worship started here in about 10 minutes.